Okay, good Tavach, everyone, and wonderful to have everybody at the start of this new week, and welcome back to Mark, rejoining us, and we are holding on Daf Samech Amud Beis, and we're holding 7 lines from the bottom. 7 lines from the bottom of Daf Samech Amud Beis. Rabbi Shimon Aimer es ha-mincha l'Rabbi Shar Menachos. It comes to include other menachos for the mitzvah of Hagasha, to bringing it to the southwest corner. Kagayin minchas nachrim, the mincha of Goyim, minchas nashim, la'agashas. For the mitzvah of Hagash, Yochel Shani Marba Avshtei Alechem Alechem Aponim. I might think we should also include the Shtei Alechem on Shavuos and Lechem Aponim, which doesn't need Hagasha. Talmud Leimer Mei Eila, from these, but not all of them. Umar Rois L'Rabbi Shar Menachos, to include minchas of Goyim and minchas Nashim Ulahaitzi Shtei Alechem Alechem Aponim, and exclude the 2 loaves of Shavuos and the showbread on Shabbos. Because part of it goes to the fire, right? The minchas nashim have a kmitza. None of it goes to the fire; it's all eaten. Says Gemara, yeah, but we do have a mincha that goes to the fire that has Hagasha. Minchas nesachim, which is the mincha brought together with karbanis, kula leishim. So yachal yehei teuna hagasha, since it goes completely to the fire, maybe it should have hagasha. Talmud Leimer v'hikriva, you bring it, which is again a miyat. Says the Gemara v'hafpiktei, we used v'hikriva to tell me a mincha saita. Says the Gemara, well, it could have said v'hikriv, and it says v'hikriva, so we learn out also to exclude the minchas nesachim. Umar rois l'Rabbi Shar Menachos, to include minchas nachrim and minchas nashim, ulahaitzi minchas nesachim, and to exclude the minchas nesachim. So the Gemara says, as we start the top of Samach Aleph Amud Aleph, Mar bani Shar Menachos shebois b'glal atzman. They come on their own. That's an adjunct for a carbon. Says the Gemara, the mincha of the kaim which is burnt, and the minchas kaim Mashiach bois b'glal atzman, it comes by itself. I might think it should need Hagasha. Talmud Leimer, it's a miyat v'higisha. Says the Gemara, "Hai mibayle legufa shetuna hagasha." What do you mean? V'higisha is not extra. That comes to tell me the mitzvah of hagasha. Says the Gemara, but it didn't have to say v'higisha. It could have just said v'hegish. I mean v'hegish v'higisha. So again, the Gemara says, "Omar rois l'Rabbi Shar Menachos," to include minchas nachrim, minchas nashim, or lahaitzi minchas kahanim, or minchas kayim Mashiach, and to exclude the mincha of Kahan and minchas kayim Mashiach. Ma bani Shar Menachos sheyesh mehem leishim. Some of it goes to the fire. Ubayis b'glal atzman, it comes by itself, not as an adjunct. V'yesh mehem lekahanim, and then there's also the shirayim that go to the kahanim. Umaytzi ani shtei alechem alechem aponim, they don't go to the fire. Shein mehem leishim. And we exclude the minchas nesachim because shein above b'glal atzma. It doesn't come by itself; it comes as an adjunct. Or minchas kahanim and minchas kayim Mashiach, and we exclude the minchas kahanim and minchas kayim Mashiach because they got burnt totally on the fire. The Rishonim say could have said this by the minchas nesachim also. Shein mehem lekahan. Now to finish off this sugya, we're holding on Daf Samach Aleph Amud Aleph, 3 lines above the Mishnah. Samach Aleph Amud Aleph, 3 lines above the Mishnah. V'heirim. Now it says that you remove from the mincha yachal b'keli, I might think you use it to utensil, because in Vayikra it just says Veherim.
Yeah, I left it over there in Kum.
It just says Veherim. So Yaakov Bekeli, Talmud Laimar Veherim Imenu Bekumtzai. In Sav, it says you should remove it with your kaimitz. Ma'arama ha'amar lahalam bekumtzai, with the hand. Afarama ha'makan bekumtzai. Okay, as we welcome in Michal Avram was just docking in here. We're starting on the new Mishnah on Daf Samach Aleph Amud Aleph. What a wonderful way to start a new week. What a wonderful way. And look at this item over here. We welcome in Dr. Black, Saba Berish, A.B. Spry, Mark Frankel, Mo Kushner, Irving Fishbaum, Yaakov Warman, Dr. Guy, Menachem Yemansky, Nachman Chapler. Oh, Reb Kaniel, it's good to have you. Wow. Barry Cement, Ben-Zion Cohn, Michal, Gabriel Epstein, Yisrael Fisher, Shimon Klein, Naftali Jablin, Moshe Lehman, Avram Rezepkowitz, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Yitzi Molech, Chaim Braun, Shelley Zeitlin, Richard Rosenzweig, Danny Vogel, Rabbi Kranz, David Helfgott, and here in Shul we have Reuven Shannet and Michal Avram just getting underway over here on a beautiful Matzah Shabbos. The Mishnah says, now the next category. Elu tu'unais tenufa, they need to be waved. Ve'ein tu'unas hagasha, they're not brought to the southwest corner to touch the mizbeach. Loig shemen shel mitzayir v'ashamai, the loig of oil that's used in the ritual purification of the leper together with his guilt offering is waved. V'abikurim, the first fruits are waved. Kediver Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Not everybody holds that way, but like the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Ve'emurei shalmei yachid, the sacrificial portions of a private shlamim, that's the kidneys, the lobe of the liver, the fats, and the breast and the shank that goes to the kohen. Echad anoshim ve'echad noshim. Waving has to do both by the carbon of a man and the carbon of a woman, but by Yisrael v'loy b'achem, which the Gemara is going to explain. Only the carbon of a man does the owner wave it with the kohen, but not the woman. If it's a woman, only the kohen waves it. Also, the 2 loaves of Shavuos and the 2 lambs are waved as well. Keitzad hu oisa. What's the procedure? Noisin shtei alechem al gabe shnei kvasim. We're going to see that that's a real tricky thing, how we know that we've put the bread on top of the lambs, but we take the 2 loaves and put it on top of the 2 lambs, Omaniach shtei yadav lamata, and he puts his 2 hands below, Molech maybe he goes forward and back, actually according to most Rishonim, in 4 directions, Malo Morin, and up and down, Shenemar Asher Hunaf, which is waved, which means in the 4 directions, Asher Huram, which is lifted up and down. Tnufa isa b'mizrach, the waving could be done on the eastern part of the Mizbeach. V'agasha b'marv, as we explained, the touching of the items to the Mizbeach is done on the southwest corner. Tnufa kaid mislagashas, if there's both, we wave before we touch the Mizbeach. Minchas ha'aymer, now here we have the next category. Minchas ha'aymer or minchas knais, the mincha of the aymer on the 16th of Nisan and the mincha of the Saita, tunas hagasha utenufa. Need both touching the southwest corner and also waving. Lechem aponim minchas nesachim, this is the next category. The showbread and the mincha that accompanies the karbanas, the libation mincha, ain't tunas loy hagasha v'loy tenufa. It has, you don't touch the southwest corner and you don't wave it. Reb Shimon now tells us Gimel mitzvahs. There's 3 types of mitzvahs. Shtayim b'kol achas v'achas. In the next 3 items, each one has 2 of the 3. Ushlish is ein behen. But for each of the three, they don't have all three, but each one has two of the three. Ve'elu hein, what are these three things? Zivchei shalmei yachid, the private shlamim, v'zivchei shalmei tzibur, the public shlamim on Shavuos, v'ashim mitzayra, and the guilt offering of the leper. Zivchei shalmei yachid, what two do they have? Tu'un and smicha, we have to lean on it and confess. Chayim, when the animal's alive. Utnufa shchutin, it's waved after it's slaughtered. What one doesn't it have? Ve'ein b'hem tnufa chayim, but it's not waved while it's alive. Zivchei shalmei tzibur, which two does it have? Tun and tnufa chayim ushnutim, it's waved alive and slaughtered, but there's no smicha. Ein b'hem smicha. V'ashim mitzayra, which two does it have? Ton smicha utnufa chay, it has leaning and waved when it's alive. Ve'ein by tnufa shachad, it's not waved when it's slaughtered. Now, please try to mute yourself, everybody. Now, it's good to have Ilya Shutman join us. Now, we said the loig shemen and the ashim mitzayra is waved. So now the Gemara talks about that. Tan Rabbana, v'hikriv oisay la'ashim ve'es loig hashemen. You offer it as a guilt offering together with the loig of oil. V'heinif oisam tenufa, and it's waved. Malamid shetunin tenufa ke'echad. That you're supposed to wave the ashim together with the loig shemen. Now, what if you do them one after another? One after another, yatsa. Now, even though v'heinif oisam seems to denote that you should have to do them together, but it could have said it in one word, v'heinifam. And the fact that it says it in two words, v'heinif oisam, so it says the word v'heinif separately to tell me that if you do it individually, it's good. Yachal yanif v'yachzav yanif. Maybe it's not telling you one way or the other. It's telling you that you should do it once together or once separate. Talmud Leimer tenufa. No, it says tenufa in the singular, v'lai tenufais. You don't do two sets. Lifnei Hashem b'mizrach. Now that's funny because usually Lifnei Hashem means on the west, which fronts the Beis Hamikdash. V'amar Lifnei Hashem yochel b'marav. Normally that means the west. Imrei hani mili mincha dikrei chatas. That's a mincha which is called a chatas, and it says also pnei hamizbeach. So it has to be on the south. And since the mincha is called the chatas, it needs to be on the south where there's the yesod, where there's the base. Now in the southeastern corner, that's the part that doesn't have a yesod. The chatas tun is yesod, the karen droimus mizrachis, and the southeastern corner loy hayaloy l'sod. And therefore it has to be on the southwestern corner, which has a yesod. Aval hacha l'fnei Hashem karina bay. The east is also l'fnei Hashem. Now he said that the bikurim, the first fruits, are waved k'divrei Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, like the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. We're going to see later that Rabbi Yehuda holds this way also, but we mention Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov because he uses an earlier part of the pasuk, or because he's very powerful. Mishnasoi kavanaki, he says few things, but we always paskin like him. It's clean. My Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, where do we see that he holds that the bikurim, the first fruits, have to be waved? The Tanya v'lokach hakayin limeid ala bikurim. This teaches us about the bikurim shetunin tenufa, that it needs to be waved. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Now, how does v'lokach teach me that it has to be waved? It just means you take it. My timer, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. It's a gzeir shava. Gomer yad yad mishlamim. He learns out yad from Shlomim. Ksiv ha'acha v'lokach ha'koyin atena miyadecha. The koyin takes the basket from your hand, so he uses the word yad. V'ksiv ha'asam, and it says by the Shlomim, yodav tiviena. His hand brings it. Just like now. We're going to learn out one from the other. By Bikurim, it says koyin. So makan koyin, that the waving is done by the koyin. Af lahalan koyin. By the Shlomim, it's also a koyin. Umar lahalan bailim, and just like by the Shlomim, it's the owner. Af kan bailim. In other words, it's waved together with the owner and the koyin. Okay, it said koyin maniach yodai tachas yidei bailim. The koyin puts his hand underneath the hand of the owner. Umeinif. Now there are different opinions. It's not really underneath. They put it on two different parts because otherwise the owner's hand would be a chatzitza to the koyin. Others say it's not a chatzitza because this is the way to do it. Says the Gemara, but why did you say it's Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov? Rabbi Yehuda also holds you have to wave bikurim, and Rabbi Yehuda's also a big man. The Leimanami Kedivrei Rabbi Yehuda, the Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Aimer v'hinachtai. You place it down in front of the mizbeach, the bikurim, zutanufa. Atayim is zutanufa. You say that it's waving. It means you should put it before the mizbeach. But it says it again. Kishu Aimer v'hinichai. Hari anocha emar. It already says placement. Hamani mekayim v'hinachtai zutanufa. So why do we say it's like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov? Why don't we say it's like Rabbi Yehuda? Says the Gemara, it's because the krivai is mentioned before v'inachtai. Like I explained, we always paskin like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, so we mention Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Now, ve'imurei shalma yachid, also the sacrificial portions of the Shalma Yachid, the Chaza v'shoik shelahen, and the breast and the shank, which is given to the Kohen, is waved. Echad ha'anoshim ve'echad ha'anoshim, both the carbon of a man and the carbon of a woman, b'Yisrael avaloi b'achem, but by a man and not by others. What does that mean? You just said both by a man and a woman, and then you say by Yisrael but not by others. My karma, what exactly are you saying? I'm Rabbi Yehuda Hachi Kamer. Echad hanoshim ve'echad noshim carbon ton tenufa. Both a man's carbon and a woman's carbon needs waving. However, utenufa atzma b'Yisrael, but the kohen does it together with the Yisrael avaloi b'dei noshim, but not with the woman. There the kohen does it himself. Tan Rabbanan, b'nei Yisrael manifin, b'nei Yisrael wave ve'enoi b'nei kachavim manifin. In other words, if a guy sends a carbon, he doesn't wave it. The kohen waves it. B'nei Yisrael manifim ve'ein anoshim manifos. The women don't wave. Amar Rabbi Yaisi, matzinu shechalak hakasav ben carbon liyisrael lekarban oivi kachavim lekarban noshim b'smicha. That by a carbon noshim, there's no smicha. Yochel nachloik b'tnufa, that we should also say that there's no tnufa at all by a carbon of a guy and carbon of women. Loi. Mali chalak b'smicha, that's because smicha is only done by the owner. Shasmicha b'bailam, and there it's b'nei Yisrael, and not women, and not a guy. Nachloik b'tnufa, the tnufa also is done by the kahanim, shatnufa b'kahanim. Im kein matam loyme b'nei Yisrael, that B'nai Yisrael manifin, that the owner, if he's a male, waves together with the kohen. Ve'ein oiv de kachavim manifin, B'nai Yisrael manifin, ve'ein anoshim manifos. The kohen does it, and not the guy with the kohen, and not the woman with the kohen. Tanida, we learned in another brisa, B'nai Yisrael, ein li ela B'nai Yisrael. I only know Jew from birth. Geirim va'avodim mishuchrorin minayin. How do we know it applies also to converts and emancipated slaves? Talmulayme hamakriv. Oh, einoi ella. That just means zekoyin hamakriv. How do you know hamakriv means, like Rashi says, koldu, anyone? Maybe it's the kohen that brings it. Kishu Omer Yodav Tviena, Hare Baalim Emor. When it says Yodav Tviena, it's talking about the Baalim. In other words, maybe Hamakriv comes to say that only the kohen does it and not the owner. Kishu Omer Yodav Tviena, his hand shall bring it. Hare Baalim Emor. So Hamakriv comes to tell you Koldu, even a ger or an Eved Meshurcher. Haketzat Kohen Maniach Yodoi Tachas Yidei Baalim. The kohen puts his hand under the hand of the owner. Umenaf. As the Gemara says, as we turn to Daf Samach Beis Amud Aleph, Ketzad Oisa. What's the procedure? Maniach Imurim Al Pisas Hayad. He puts the sacrificial portion on his palm, the kidneys, the lobe of the liver, the fats, the chazav v'shoik aleihen, and the breast and the shank upon them. Ubekol makom sheyesh lechem, and if it's a carbon that's accompanied with bread, right? For example, let's say it's the toida that has bread with it, right? So ubekol makom sheyesh lechem. The lechem mulmala, the bread goes on top. Says the Gemara, Heicha, where do we find a basis that the bread goes on top? Amra papa b'miluim. It says by the mincha of the miluim, it says, that they take a sal hamatzis and they put it ala chalavim v'al shoy kayamin, and they put it on the fats. So we see that the bread goes on top.
I'll have to change the day.
We will soon.
All right.
Thank you. As a matter of fact, it's a good place to stop.